When we hear the word Frankfurt, many people immediately think of stereotypes: sausages, the airport, and a boring financial center. But in reality, this city is completely different. Imagine skyscrapers like in New York and old German half-timbered houses side by side on the same street. In this video, you will learn things you definitely did not expect about Frankfurt and Germany. Is it true that you can drive 200 kilometers per hour on the autobahns and it's legal? Why Frankfurt is nicknamed Mainhattan, and which drink is more popular here than beer? How many liters of beer the average German drinks per year, and why you have to pay a tax for a dog but not for a cat? What the Old Town hides, where emperor coronations took place, how Europa Park surprised us even more than Tokyo Disneyland, and what you can see at the BMW Museum in Munich, from the first motorcycles to the cars of the future. Friends, I would be very grateful for your support. Every like, comment, and subscription helps this video reach new viewers and inspires me to create even more interesting videos for you. This summer, my family and I decided to go on a trip across Europe. As much as I love Japan, summer in Tokyo is truly a challenge. It's hot, humid, and sometimes it's simply impossible to be outside. That's why we decided to explore new places with a more comfortable climate. Stay tuned on my channel for a series of videos from different corners of Europe. Our adventure began in Frankfurt, where we, by the way, rented a small motorhome. For us, it was a new and very interesting experience. Well, let's go and see how Frankfurt was able to surprise us. First, I want to share with you some very strange and unusual local rules that are genuinely surprising. For example, in Frankfurt, as well as throughout Germany, there is a special dog tax. Yes, to keep a four-legged friend, the owner is required to pay the city. The amount depends on the region, but on average it is about 150 euros per year for one dog. But for cats, you don't have to pay. Why, you ask? It is considered that dogs have a stronger impact on public spaces. They walk in courtyards, parks, and leave traces behind. In Germany, you cannot give a child just any name, so the Wakin-Pori is what of the dog's color means. It must clearly indicate the gender and not be insulting or ridiculous. If a name raises doubts, it is reviewed by a special committee at the registry office. Every household is required to pay a tax for television and radio, even if they do not have a TV. This is about 18 euros per month. The money goes to fund public TV channels and radio stations. Even in Germany, we found similarities with Japan. For example, in Japan, getting and keeping a dog is also not easy. The pet must be registered, and each year it must be vaccinated against rabies. Skipping this is considered a violation of the law. There are also parallels with children's names. Starting in 2025, a new rule will be introduced. When registering a child, the pronunciation of the name must be specified and approved. Have you noticed any other parallels between Germany and Japan? Maybe Frankfurt reminded you of Tokyo, Osaka, or another city in the world? Write in the comments. I'm very curious to hear your opinion. The city is also nicknamed Mainhattan because it stands on the river Main, and its skyscrapers strongly resemble Manhattan. It is the only city in Germany where a 14th century church can stand behind you while a mirrored skyscraper rises in front of you, and all of this is within a few minutes walking distance. Frankfurt is the heart of European finance. Here is the European Central Bank, the very organization responsible for the euro. A single document signed here can affect prices across all of Europe, from mortgages in Italy to the cost of groceries in France. Here, business tycoons, students, and tourists coexist, with tourists coming for the sausages and apple cider. By the way, the #1 drink here is not beer, but apple cider. It is served in heavy gray jugs and drunk from thick patterned glasses. It is such a signature drink that the city even has entire streets dedicated to cider taverns. Also, Frankfurt hosts the world's largest book fair. It has been held for more than 500 years, attracting publishers, writers, and readers from all over the world. When walking through the city at this time, it feels like every shop window and every poster reminds you of books. The entire city turns into a celebration of literature. It is also the birthplace of one of the most famous German writers, Goethe. His house has been preserved here as a museum, and if you go inside, you can literally see the atmosphere in which the future genius grew up. We cannot forget to mention Frankfurt Airport. It is not just a transportation hub, it is a whole city within a city. In size, it can be compared to a small country. Shops, hotels, offices, tens of thousands of jobs. Many locals joke that they do not live in Frankfurt, but by the airport. Frankfurt knows how to have fun. Every year, the famous sausage festival takes place here. Imagine streets where dozens of stalls compete to see whose sausages taste and smell the best. The smell of grilled meat hangs over the square, and you literally get lost among dozens of types of sausages, seasonings, and sauces. For Germans, this is not just food, it is part of their culture. If you want to understand the history of the city, it's worth visiting the old town Römerberg. It looks like a straight out of a fairy tale. Neat houses, a cobblestone square, and the town hall. You might not believe it, but almost the entire old town of Frankfurt is a reconstruction. During World War II, practically no buildings remained here. It was only decades later that the city decided to restore the heart of Frankfurt. This is where the coronations of German emperors took place, where tourists now drink coffee and take selfies, once the people welcomed the new rulers of the Holy Roman Empire. People speak 180 languages here, and Frankfurt is the most multicultural city in Germany. Every third resident was not born in this country. And you know what is most surprising? On a single street, you can find a Turkish bakery, an Irish coffee shop, a Korean beauty salon, and a shop selling African spices. And if you go down to the subway, you will hear more English than German. The locals have their own special pride, the local dialect and cuisine. For example, a popular dish here is green sauce, a mixture of fresh herbs served with potatoes and eggs. For Frankfurt residents, it is almost a national treasure, while for visitors, it often looks and tastes very unusual. On average, a German eats about 50-60 kilograms of meat per year and drinks approximately 88 liters of beer, although this figure decreases each year. For comparison, 10 years ago, a local resident drank about 100 liters per year. Frankfurt is one of the most expensive cities in Germany. Locals joke that you have to pay extra for the view of the skyscrapers. Renting a one-bedroom apartment costs on average around 1,200 1,500 euros per month. If you want something bigger or closer to the city center, be prepared for prices around 2,000 euros or more. Dinner for two in a regular restaurant costs about 40-60 euros. In a more upscale restaurant, the bill can easily exceed 100 euros. Nevertheless, the high cost is justified by the fact that Frankfurt truly has everything. As a result, the city remains expensive but attractive for those ready to live in the rhythm of a large metropolis. But to feel like a local in Frankfurt, you also need to know the local rules. Germans love order and laws, and there are nuances here that can surprise a tourist. Let's start with the roads. Germany is famous for its autobahns, where on some sections there is no speed limit. In theory, you can drive even 200 kilometers per hour, but there's a catch. The officially recommended speed is 130 kilometers per hour, and if an accident happens while you are driving faster, the insurance company may decide that part of the blame is on you. So it's better not to get carried away. Finding a parking spot in central Frankfurt is a real challenge. Even if you are lucky, an hour of parking can easily cost 2-3 euros, and in hotels the price can reach up to 30 euros. That's why many people prefer to leave their car in suburban parking lots and get to the center by subway. Germany also has quiet hours, from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And also on Sundays, making noise is completely prohibited. Even loud music or vacuuming can be a reason for complaints from neighbors. There is also a daytime quiet hour, approximately from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. If you rent accommodation in Frankfurt, it's best to follow these rules to avoid an awkward situation. It may seem that Frankfurt is a city of banks and technology, but despite this, cash is still needed here. Yes, cards are accepted almost everywhere, but at markets, kiosks, or small cafes, you may be asked to pay in cash, so it's better to always have some euros in your wallet, just in case. We also repeatedly encountered situations where you want to use a restroom, and it only accepts cash. So keep in mind that you will need coins, not bills, because otherwise you will either have to endure it or look for another place that accepts card payments. Shops are closed on Sundays. Almost the entire city freezes on this day. Only some cafes, restaurants, gas stations, and a few kiosks are open, so you need to buy groceries in advance. This is what happens when in Europe you decide, or rather forget that it's Sunday, and try to enter a shopping center. You simply can't get in because, unfortunately, nothing is open. Honestly, I can't imagine this happening in Japan. Japan has already spoiled us with convenience stores that are open 24/7. You don't have to worry about arriving by plane and not having anything to eat. We spent half a day just coming from the plane, and I was already so tired. We walked around looking for food, and there was none to be found. All the shops were closed, with signs everywhere saying, closed. Why? Because on Sundays in Europe, you can't eat anywhere. We went to McDonald's, but I don't like McDonald's. There's nothing healthy there, but we had to eat. They didn't even give us a straw. You buy a Coke, ask for a straw, and they say it's not allowed. We had already gone past the third gas station when we finally found something, at least a sandwich, so we wouldn't be hungry. We asked the clerk for a bag, and she said no bags. We said, then how are we supposed to carry the groceries? And she said, no bags. Germans are proud of this. Recycling works perfectly here. Germans separate everything: paper, plastic, organic waste, glass. And if, for example, you rent an apartment, they will expect the same from you. We're in a supermarket in Germany, and look at how many pizzas there are. Here is a whole section with pizzas. Here's a sign that says pizza. Then another entire fridge with pizzas, and yet another fridge full of pizzas. Just look, and even more. I'm shocked at how many there are. I don't know. It feels like people eat only pizzas because the quantity is really incredible. There's even more, and so much more. Look at this! Unlike in many countries, here you can calmly drink beer in a park or on a square. It is completely legal. But it is important to remember the culture. No one will approve if you behave too loudly or rudely. Originally, we planned to visit only Frankfurt in Germany, but it so happened that it was my daughter's birthday, and we decided to celebrate it in a special way. We started looking for an amusement park, and the choice fell on Europa Park. It is located in the town of Rust, about 2 hours from Frankfurt. We stayed right at the hotel by the park, and it turned out to be very convenient, because the stay included 2-day tickets to the park at a discount and an entire day in the neighboring water park. Europa Park really impressed us. It is the second most visited amusement park in Europe after Disneyland Paris. The area is huge, about 100 hectares. There are more than 100 attractions, including 13 roller coasters. And the most interesting thing is that the park is divided into zones, each styled after a specific European country. You can stroll through France, Italy, Switzerland, or Greece, try food from these countries, watch shows, and feel the atmosphere. In addition to attractions, the park hosts various performances from acrobatic shows to productions for children. Everything is done very colorfully, with attention to detail. The festive atmosphere can be felt in every zone. Compared to Tokyo Disneyland, the experience is very different. In Japan, everything really feels magical. You feel like a character in a cartoon, and it is amazing. But Disneyland has one huge drawback: queues. I have said many times on my channel, at Tokyo Disneyland, it's simply impossible to ride even half of the attractions in one day. Waiting for 1 or even 2 hours is normal. There is a fast pass system, but it only works for a limited number of attractions and zones, so it doesn't solve the problem much. At Europa Park, everything was much more comfortable. Yes, there are many people, but we were able to ride attractions without standing endlessly in lines. Write in the comments which amusement park you would recommend visiting. Next to Europa Park is the large water park Rulantica. There are dozens of slides, pools, saunas, and a huge heated outdoor pool. For children, it is a real paradise. There are so many water attractions that it's hard to choose. And after a day on the roller coasters, spending another day in the water park is just perfect, especially in the summer. After this, we left Germany and moved on. And where exactly you will find out in the next video about our trip through Europe. But I still can't help but mention that both the beginning and the end of our European adventure took place in Frankfurt. This is where we rented the motorhome, and this is also where we had to return it at the end of the trip. And while we were returning to Frankfurt, we made one more stop in Munich to visit the famous BMW Museum. The museum itself is very unusual. The building looks modern and bright, and inside you can see the entire history of the company. It starts with the earliest motorcycles, then vintage cars that were produced almost 100 years ago. Next come the sports models that once took part in races, and even a whole hall dedicated to the future of cars, electric vehicles, concept cars that are not yet in production, but already show what the transportation of tomorrow will look like. Interestingly, BMW did not start with cars, but with aviation. The museum even has old airplane engines. Later, the company switched to automobiles. Frankfurt is like a puzzle, where each element comes from a different era, a different country, a different culture. It breaks stereotypes, but it does so beautifully. That's what makes Frankfurt so unexpected. Please give a like to this video, subscribe to the channel, write your comments, and see you in the next videos. Bye!